Okay. All right. So to start off today, I just wanted to talk about this concept of channel 3 and channel 5. Now, there are different names for this concept in yoga and physical therapy and other ways. The way that my teacher likes to teach it is channel 3 and channel 5. And basically it is channel 3 is your intuitive brain and channel 5 is your logic brain. And he's trying to help you understand where in the present the logic brain is taking over the intuitive brain, when it should be the intuitive brain running the show and the logic brain stepping in when it needs to. But our logic brain is in full force all the time. And so channel 3 is where you create space for yourself. Channel 5 is kind of where you go into like shame, blame, guilt. It's like the pressure, right? Which for some things, when we need that pressure is good. But for stuff which we're coming into, which is like really small stuff, and we're going into that space that's just not needed, right? And also channel 3 is very much about living in the present. So when the mind chatter starts coming in and we start going over conversations we had earlier in the day, we start thinking of conversations we're going to have. That is not being in the present. It's not being in your intuitive brain. That's your logic brain trying to plan out everything. And then it's also what happens is it limits you, right? So like every interaction and every experience then that you have throughout the day, all you're doing is going back to all of your past stuff, all of your past routines, all of your past loops. And so it doesn't give any kind of space for going into anything new, or even giving you the thought to try something new. That's the other part of it, is some people like that doesn't even come to them at all. Channel 3 should be in charge, slipping into channel 5 when you choose to. When channel 5 logic brain is running the show, we tend to stay in fight, flight, or freeze. So the difference between being reactive and responsive, which is that pause in the brain where you take a second and you decide whether or not you're going to blow up or breathe and react differently. Be able to respond instead of react. For some people, it can be kind of hard to wrap your head around that. It's an awareness thing. And I think that it's layered, right, for different people. So it can be personal because it's different for everybody. We all have our own patterns and our own layers and everything. Staying present is probably something I try to be mindful of every day whenever I can, just because I know the more present I am, the more I slow down, the nicer I am, the less I beat myself up for things. To me, it's just a better place to be. But again, it's different for everybody. So we didn't do this. Did we do diaphragmatic breathing? I don't think so. So some people call it box breathing. Yoga, it's called a fancy word. But basically all it is it's inhaling for 4 to 6 seconds, holding that inhale for 4 to 6 seconds. And that's what we call the suspension. So you're inhaling for 4, and then you're holding that inhale for 4. And then you're exhaling. The exhaling is going for 4. And then you hold that exhale out for another 4 seconds. That one tends to be difficult for people, the holding that suspension of the exhale out, because it hits right here and the pelvic floor and the sacrum. And a lot of times that's a big dictator for fight, flight, or freeze. Whether you're living kind of in survival mode is a big one for that if you have trouble. That was my biggie. One was holding that exhale out. I would feel like I was literally like gonna like hyperventilate. So, and the way you can kind of work with it too is take like little sips, right? Like try to keep that breath out, but then maybe kind of just take in a little bit to just relax the body. And that's another thing that, again, it's like working with yourself, because you're the only one that knows what's really going on inside when you're breathing and everything. And another way you can focus on it too is when you're lying down, you can put one hand on the heart and you can put one hand on the belly. And you can go back and forth where you're inhaling through the belly. We did this in the last workshop. That's where we did it from. and then inhaling through the heart, which you'll notice that popped up a little bit. That's my breathing imbalance. But yeah, so you can rotate going back and forth, or you can just focus on one big breath, whatever feels good for you. Meditation can be scary for some people. People don't like to sit still. I didn't like sitting still, but once you start doing it, it gets a little addicting because you start craving the stillness. You start craving that little piece that you get for 5 to 10 minutes. So I definitely encourage people to try it. Again, that's all helps so much with mind-body connection as well. We constantly have music going, TV going, people talking. It's very rare that there is silence. So when you can find it, it is really important to practice. And it can go from 5 to 10 minutes. That's another thing about meditation. You can literally sit for 3 to 5 minutes and find that spot and then carry on with your day. And it can make a big difference. So it doesn't have to be 30, 45 minutes of sitting. It can be just a couple minutes. It's also good practice at observing how easily we slide into repetitive stressful thoughts, decreasing our energy and awareness to what is going on in the present and consequently missing vital things that could be remedying our stressful situation. To become locked in a specific thought pattern will lock your body and eventually lock your brain down in ways that we are seeing. So that's what I mean by the fascia being so mind-body connected, because your brain's in lock, the body's in lock too. The body's in lock, the brain's in lock. It goes together. And people will say, kind of just passing a phrase around, I feel this, I feel that. The body is literally doing that. It is locking down the brain, and you can't find space in it unless you really give it time and relax and be able to just sit there, or you'll continue to just go on and on and on and on. I like to drink chamomile tea or lavender or something for me to understand that reference of the body calming down, because a lot of times I'll be so keyed up where I'm working, and I go to bed and I'm exhausted, but my body is I keep waking up because my body's not sleeping. Or so, you feel your body just being kind of antsy. If you can get something in your body or do a meditation or something like that to get the body to relax before bed, it can really help create the energy saver space for you, where you're actually creating energy while you're sleeping instead of dispensing it, which is what happens when we go to sleep and we're not relaxed. The body's trying to fight the entire time we're sleeping, and then we wake up and we're I'm exhausted still. So. Hi. You need anything? You got everything?
You get pie done.
Oh, you're.
You need anything? I have some extra of the balls here.
I think we're set. We got our mini session.
Where are the mats, too?
Oh,
What kind of pie was it?
I mean, apple crumble pie.
Oh, yeah.
So I ordered one, and so I was trying to get that done because I wouldn't have time if I came here. I'm trying to do it afterwards.
here you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Next page. So yeah, and again, touching on the mind and getting the mind to calm down and learning how to work with the mind. I personally think that a lot of the cognitive and mental disorders that happen later on, like Alzheimer's and dementia, are caused from the brain and the body being locked, right? It's to me, it's something where you're continuously doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it's kind of like the body turning in on itself and getting frozen in that space. And again, they're finding more and more that fascia work is getting linked to neurological disorders. And that's why it's a really cool way to be preventative early on for stuff, because that kind of stuff is getting worse, unfortunately. Yeah. body scans. Has anybody heard of body scans? Yoga Nidra is really good for that. You can also look online. There are different body scan scripts that you can find, and you can read them off, or you can find recordings too. As we did it last workshop, and that's where you're just walking through the body and you're like, relax the shoulders, relax the elbows, relax the arms, relax the wrists, relax the fingers, and you take it down all the way to like the smallest part of your body, and you go through the whole body. A really cool thing to do if you want to up it another level is to record yourself saying that and then play it for yourself. It's very powerful. Oh, listening to yourself, telling yourself to relax, it's like a echo effect. And you'd be really surprised, alchemy wise, what that can do for you. Yes, it's very powerful. And also, if you don't like how your voice sounds, that can be a disconnection that you've got going on, and it's a really good way to reconnect with your voice as well. That's a fun one. I highly encourage people to do that. Nobody else has to listen to it. No. So we did pelvic floor release. We did child's pose last week, right? Yeah, so that's really good for your pelvic floor. The other one that we're going to do real fast is going to be reclined Baddha Konasana. So Baddha Konasana is this right here, where you've got the soles of the feet together. Some people like butterfly pose or whatnot. So you are welcome to take these blocks. In this, you'll find this in restorative yoga or anything. You can place them underneath the thighs if you need to for support, like that, or blankets. Either one of those is fine. This is really good for pelvic floor release. You guys are welcome to join if you want, or you can just watch whatever you'd like to do.
Hey, G, can I use that? I have two different sizes.
Oh, you. Okay. Right. And so to do a little variation, lying on your back, bend your knees, and use your hands to bring them up towards your chest and out to the side. There you go. Gently push your knees outward to lengthen through the inner thighs. You guys feel that? So if you pull your knees apart, feel like an extra little elongation through the inner thighs. What you can also do is you can switch the grip and grab onto your inner thighs and pull them apart as well. Make sure to breathe during this stuff. Try to take it a little deeper. Also in my classes, I will tell people to place their hands on the inner thighs and to gently push down just a little bit and then push towards the knee. You can feel a little elongation through the inner thigh. You can also take the left hand and grab onto the ribs, and you pull the ribs up as you push down on the thigh, and you'll feel that separation in the hips. Feeling okay? You can stay in this pose the rest of that hour. Everybody got that? Okay. Beautiful. I'll let you guys sit in there for another minute. Take a second and just tap into the body and take yourself into your quads, into your hamstrings, into your hips. Gonna take some big inhales and exhales. Okay. So for this next thing, I wanted to do this last week, but we didn't have time. So I'm gonna have you guys come over here to the wall. And you're gonna come in to this spot right here. So if you need to bring something to support you over by the wall, then do it to it. Okay. So with the leg elongation, what I want you to do is point. Oh, sorry. Oh. Everybody okay? There we go. Okay, so we're gonna point our toes to the sky. Hold that point. Take a nice big inhale. Where are you guys feeling that the most with the toes pointed?
Hamstring.
Ankles. Where are you feeling it, Catherine? Top of the feet. Mother.
Top of my feet in the arch. I remember. See you about on Wednesday.
This is a really great one for at the end of the night. Right? Also, the inversion stool I've got, it's one reason the inversion stool is really awesome. Because letting your like bottom extremities be up is a really, really good way to release the inflammation and pressure. And by doing this before you're stretching, you're knocking out a lot of the layers already, with not having to do too much. So now draw the toes back to the shins. What are we feeling there? Calves.
Shins.
Shins.
What?
Okay. Now for each one of these, if you were doing it at home, I'd say probably around like 2 to 3 minutes, whatever feels good for you at that time. Sometimes your feet might be too tired to hold that long. So, and you can personally feel what's releasing. So if you feel like things are releasing, then you might not have to sit in it as long. The other way you can do it, so we want the toes, the big toes, to draw towards themselves. So it's kind of like kind of down here. So you're taking the toes like that in. So the ankles are sprawling out and the toes are in. There we go. How does that feel?
Like this. It's really gets your back
Yeah.
flat.
Yeah. Yeah, so what it's doing is it's pulling the outside, the outer part of the hips up, out, or even the glutes kind of pull up. So then, yeah, that's good.
It's actually, you're doing like.
Yeah, you're drawing towards midline.
I was just trying to move my.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I was like, I don't think your feet are that stiff. So turn toes out to stretch the inside of the leg, allow, okay. So now put the toes back just normal. Allow legs to move apart. To open through the inner thighs. If you feel strain through the legs, bend your knees, relaxing them out to the side. Yeah, so if you want to go wider, look at those legs, man. And oh, whoops. Beautiful. How's everybody feeling? That's good. Just kidding. Just stay here for 1 second, take a nice big inhale.
What's it called in the water when they're already safe, like?
So again, this series is fantastic, because one, all it requires is a wall. Two, there's nothing stressful going on with the joints, it's very relaxing. And you can have people running around like crazy around you and you can still sit there in your wall. If you have children or crazy house people. Whenever you guys are ready, if you want to make your way down and come on back to your spot. So we were going over the ball stuff a bit last week. I'd like to go through it just one more time to kind of go over everything you can do with this thing. It really is one of the cheapest, best tools you can get when it comes to stretching and getting relief from your joints. Whatever you're doing, whether it's traveling or recuperating from work. So, and again, the ball tends to be very targeted, right? So it's a lot of pressure. And that's why the block's nice, because it creates a flatter surface so that it's not pinning in on something that might be really testy right now. So my tools. So front and back of hip. Now these ones you do laying down. Some of these you can actually do up against the wall too. You use the wall just like you would do the floor. But for the ones, the front and the back of the hip. So lying on your stomach, you can place this baby right here. Whatever this one. I think we kind of like raced through them. Is what I felt like. I don't feel like we actually kind of like sat in them. So yeah, the front of the hip. And again, it can be different for different people because your hip again can be up, down, or even just parts of the hip that are hurting more than others. I'm gonna be a little gentle because I am on my period. And again, this is all about feeling. You're feeling for the tense spots, teaching your body how to soften into the props is the biggest thing with props. Learning to soften and take yourself deeper and deeper without being intrusive and aggravating your nerves. What's everybody feeling? I always get it's like a sensation down my quad when I do the front of the hip. It almost will, it's like a tingling sensation that I'll get down my thigh, and then it'll come around the back of the thigh. So the psoas starts in the back, the lower back, wraps around the hips, and then links onto the outside of the pubic bone. This is a really good way to get into the psoas, because the psoas, especially from sitting so much, will make the hips really, really tight, and it's really hard to stretch the psoas. It's like a big, imagine like a balloon that's been popped, and then take that material and stretch it across. That's kind of what the psoas is going to look like, and also how it's going to texture wise, how it's going to be. So pushing into it, kind of the only way to stretch it. Okay. Now you can also take the ball and you can take it lower into the quad, right? Now, if you want to switch to the block, you're welcome to it, but if you want to kind of feel the ball and what the ball does versus the block, then you can stick with the ball. Now your quad is actually separated into two different muscles. Oh, I don't know, a lot of people don't know that. And they actually slide back and forth on each other like this. And that's what we mean by fascia gliding. Right, so that's the glide, our body works on the glide system, our muscles glide across each other, the muscle fibers glide across each other, that's how they work. And so by releasing the quad like this, you're releasing that tension between the two muscles. So the quad gets less tight and is a lot more mobile. That's where you can do a lot more of the twisting in the hips without hurting yourself. A lot of times that quad is so glued that when you start jerking the hips to the sides, that's actually what pulls on the hips so hard, is that quad is so locked into place. So, and even I can attest working on people, quads, man. Tight quads are so chronic and they cause multiple things. You know, like they can be affecting somebody in the front and they can be infecting somebody in the back. It's pretty crazy. Oh, and I probably had chronic tight quads my entire life. I'm sure they're probably still chronically tight.
Roll, man, just rolling down my thigh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's wild. It's wild how much you can get out of this ball. And just getting it in there.
You use those foam rollers.
Yeah.
I think that these are nicer. It's a little soft, you know, you're going into a little bit softer. I think you can.
Yeah. The foam roller can be too intense for a lot of people, but then for some people it works really well. You can do all these things with a foam roller too. Most everything we do, there's a series, there's a foam roller series, there's a ball series, and then there's a block series. And so if we go
Yeah.
if we go further down, so you've got your shin right here, right? The ball you can either place on the outside of the shin or on the inside right here. Right? So either right here or right here. Either side. Now you might have to turn your leg a little bit to get it to flat, but that pocket on the outside for me, on the outside. So shin splints, knee pain, a lot of that stuff is the fascia being trapped on your shin. So your shins will hold so much tension. It's another reason your calves will get really, really tight because the shins, the fascia is all like sticking onto the shin bone in the front. And you can anywhere down that shin. There's even down on the lower part, that's where my deep tissue massage therapist always gets me at the end, very bottom, on the outside. Oh,
Feel like.
yeah. Yeah, either side of the shin, all the way down, you will most typically always have knots. And then that goes right into the ankle. Yeah, so if you want to take it further and mess with the ankle, ankles can be kind of sensitive though. So if the ball is too much for the ankle, if you just kind of want to roll it, you know. We did that top ankle stretch one last time. That's a little bit more left. It's less intrusive than the ball on the ankle. So, okay, so that was the back side or the front side. So now the back side is to take the ball, start with the back of the hip. And again, this is depending on where you're at and where your body's at, how much pressure you want to put on. And so I'm sticking that ball probably it's about right here. I'll probably move down a little bit right here. And it also, if you can if you kind of have figured out which one of your hips is turned in and out. When your hip is turned out, you're gonna feel the ball more when it's on the outside, right? Because everything's pulling through the outside. If your hip's turned in, you're probably gonna feel it more on the inside, but that's different. Again, it could be different. I never say anything anymore, like that's how it is with it, because somebody will walk in and prove me wrong. I like to take my feet up off the ground too, to add a little extra pressure. But I've also been doing this for a while, and so my body's pretty used to me drilling in there. So again, be careful. How's everybody feeling?
I'm kinking up in the shoulder.
There you go. So there is your fascia restriction number 2 yelling at you, right? So that hip probably is causing that restriction up top.
What a surprise.
This is also using this ball and just taking your time. It can really, like how she's experiencing, where you find one restriction and then the part of your body will light up, dictating that that's your next restriction you need to work on. So again, it is, you're communicating with your body.
It's really yellow. Loud.
Oh, whenever you're ready, if you
Above my head, right there.
you guys come on up to seated whenever you're ready. Now, this is my favorite. And it is that spot right between the glute and the hamstring, right here. So when I was talking about that gets stuck. So your glute and your hamstring tend to glue together, which what happens then is the hamstring takes on all of that stuff. Your glutes stop firing off, and then your back starts to hurt. This guy, I like to stick right there and then very gently shift over into it. It will be intense, especially if you have a hip rotation going on. Woo. Now, for this part, I feel more closer in, right? So it'll be different. You might feel more on the outside. You might feel it more right in the middle. And you can kind of move your butt forward a little bit to try to get even more in that crease. The more you can get in the crease between the glute and the hamstring, the better, because it's just making space. Yeah, it's like one of my favorites in the whole world. I don't know why. But I'll get like these electrical jolts down my legs from doing this stuff. And it feels so good. Not bad electrical jolts. But that's also, my hip has been messed up for a very long time. And so all this area of my hip is rebuilding right now. And so it feels really good. And you can work it down. So you can go to the mid hamstring. Woo! That for some people can be really intense right there. That can be another area that's getting caught up with your knee. Right, so the closer you get down to your knee, if you start feeling a little bit in the knee, that means that this stuff is getting caught up and it's creating stress in the knee. And I think I remember going over this last time, but there's these little pockets right here, it's kind of like the shin, right here, and right here. It's kind of like a box around the back of the knee. And you'll get these little tension spots in there that are insane. So if you can get the ball to kind of go under. And again, be gentle. There's not a lot of muscle around the knees. That's why everybody they end up going out, because the other muscles get hurt and then there's not enough muscle around the knee to support it. And so then it ends up taking the injury. So there's a spot like right here for me. I can feel it right there, all the way down my calf and then up through here too. And then also the inside part. Woo! Tight calves also, if you can get it like right there at the top of the calf, that can be a really good spot too. Or if you want to go further down, you can get the ball right in the middle of the calf, if you can handle that one. And again, you can let the ball sort of come to the side like that. If I've ever done MFR on you, it's the same thing where I just stick my fingers up in your calf and then I just let it sit like that and let it release. It's the same concept. You're doing the same stuff. And you can work the ball down all the way to the Achilles. This is another great thing before you go to bed if you've been doing a lot of physical activity during the day, to just get that ball up under your ankle or some part of your leg is going to decrease the pressure and inflammation up and down it. So, and we did the bottom of the feet, didn't we, last week? Oh, so good. Okay. And two at a time. Okay, next we're gonna do the front of the chest, and we're gonna do it laying down. So the ball is gonna go right here in this pec minor. So the pec minor is right here. Everybody has really tight pec minors, always. And the pec minor is what pulls the shoulder, right? Pec minor is like pulling, almost everything we do is activating that pec minor. So when you get the ball right there, and you can lay down on it. Everybody feeling that one? Now what you can do with this one too is you can bring it like a little further outside if you want of the shoulder. I feel that it lights up the inside of my shoulder when I do that. This is again a really good for the shoulder joint in general. Oh. Oh.
You got your hands facing up.
Palms
facing.
I have palm facing down.
No.
Put your arm out to the sides. There you go. And actually move that left ball out a little bit and see if you feel it a little more. There you go. Yeah. Do you feel that a little bit more? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ooh. Everybody doing okay? Everybody feeling things? You're not feeling things, then tell me. And I will make you feel things. That's another cool thing, is that a lot of times if you're not feeling something, you don't have to move that much to get to a place that you're gonna feel it. That's a beautiful thing about the fascia, is you can just, if you're already in that spot and it's good, and then you kind of want to adjust and move a little bit more, it's like a whole new thing. You can work that ball out to the bicep, and you can literally, just like the calf, place that bicep on the ball. The bicep is another one that people don't realize it's actually two separate muscles. And it's the same thing where they glide on each other. And a lot of times people's biceps are pretty stressed out and glued together. And there's not a lot of space between the two bicep muscles. And that's why a lot of times the biceps will get very bulky. They're not necessarily supposed to be really bulky, but it happens because it is possible to do that, to train the muscle to do that. But that's not what we're really looking for. You can take it even further down to the inside of the elbow joint. It's going to be very similar. The elbow to me is just like the knee. I feel like we get the same tension spots on the opposite side of the elbow, like we do the opposite side of the knee. The way the joints hold pressure is so similar. For example, you can be having wrist pain and finger pain, and it's all coming from your elbow joint being compressed. And that's the same with the knees. You can have all that pressure in the back of the knees, creating numbness in the ankles and the toes. It's like I think of a lot of times, I try to explain it to people like a pipe system, where when you have a restriction or something, it's like taking a clamp and putting it on that pipe. And then, so wherever the disbursement then gets stuck. And so energetically, when that happens, you're not getting that full energy down all the way through your legs, and it feels that and it knows it, and then it starts getting mad at you. It's like they're taking it all. There's nothing left for me. Okay, you can also take it out to the wrist. So carpal tunnel, anything in the arms or anything, you can let that ball just hang out right on the bottom of the wrist. And you can kind of move over into the joints a little bit, like the side to side and the bottom of the wrist. After I work on a lot of people, this is something that I do. I just put my arm right on the ball like this and just let it unwind and decompress. Oh, so good. How's everybody doing? Finding things? Ooh. Okay. Oh. Side of hip. Ooh, we didn't do the side of the hip. Okay. Whenever you guys are ready, kind of roll over to the side. And this ball is going into the side. Ooh. Yeah. Now this can be a pretty intense one. So if you'd rather use the block, you can definitely use the block if you already know the ball is going to be too much. Yep. And you can even take it a little further down if you want. Ooh. Yeah. Oh, the outside of the leg. Ooh. We can even kind of roll a little bit. Tight.
The trick is keeping the rest of your body relaxed when.
Well, and it's how you
Know what I
start
mean?
teaching
Not
your
to
body to soften.
Tense up when
Yeah.
you're feeling the
Well, and it's
release from the other part.
yeah, it's the learning how to soften. You know, it's that taking control and taking that big inhale. Also takes you into muscle control as well. Woo. We're ready. Come on out of that one. So we did the front of the ankles last time. The one that I didn't show you though is you push up against the wall. You feel the back and you can stretch out the back of the leg like that. And that feels really nice. I'm not gonna, you can push hard, but I'm not gonna push hard against these meters. Oh, and that's really nice for the back of the calf and the ankle. Okay. Butts, hips, frontal lobes. Without ball. Oh yeah, and I wanted to show you guys this real fast too. So if you're trying to stretch your hamstrings and you're having a hard time with like doing forward fold, so a lot of times lower back injuries can prevent you from bending through the lower back. So if you're trying to stretch that hamstring, what I do, get in a space where one leg is down and one leg is up. And then just kind of lean forward, right? So without having anything right here, you're already creating some little distance. So if you're gonna get in there faster. Yeah. So instead of having to do this, it's a lot less pressure on your lower back. Or if it's like one side, you know, is different than the other one, then that would be really good too. Okay. On to cranial. Oh, let me bring Sarah back to me. Almost forgot you. Okay. The cranial and dural system. The deepest layer of the fascia system is the dura. It is the thick sheath that surrounds the spinal column and brain, and then extends through the intervertebral openings to the rest of the body. Therefore, restrictions of the dural system can have profound effects not only on the nervous system, but on the entire body and being. The dura is housed, in the space between the skull and the brain. Oh, look, I repeated that. Did I? No, I didn't. I just said it different. The dura is housed in the space between the skull and brain. It then passes through the hole at the base of the skull and continues on to ensleeve the spinal cord until it reaches the base of the spine. It is anchored at many locations, including the cranial bones, the upper neck, and the sacrum, base of spine. These bones can be used as handles to access and release this deepest layer of the fascia system. It is important to remember that the dural system is not an isolated system within the body, because parts of it extend out from the intervertebral spaces and infuse with the fascia within the rest of the body. Treatment to the dural system will have an effect on the rest of the body, and likewise, treatment to other aspects of the body will have an indirect effect on the dural system. Forward head posture was discussed in the upper body section. So we talked about how with the upper body, with the forward head, what that does is the sides of the neck, the nerves drop down underneath the collarbone and then start spindling out through the arms and through there. So if our head is already forward like this, right? So this is how we normally are. And then we go to look up at something. Our head doesn't necessarily lift up, but our eyes and everything else kind of do. So we're still in this forward motion, and then we go like this. That creates so much pressure in the back of the neck, right? So it's not even necessarily this that's messing with people as much as being like this and then slightly lifting your head up. Do you see that? How that happens? Were you able to see that? Right, so say I'm typing, and then something happens and I'm like that, right? Just my head is going up like this instead of like up like this. So it's like this little micro bend that happens even like that. And that's why that curvature is so specific. You know, like it's not just like this one curve that's coming over like here. It's like a curve and then it's like a lift. You know, and that is because we're still being attentive, but we still have that front posture that's doing that. So in addition to the shoulder and arm problems, the forward posture can also contribute to pain and dysfunction involving the neck and head. When the head is more anterior to the plumb line, which is what I was talking about, the head will naturally tilt up, so the eyes and other sensory organs of the face to assess the environment. This upward tilt of the face shortens the back of the neck and compresses the area at the base of the skull. This can lead to neck pain and headaches, and clinically has been associated with depression. So again, like, it's not just that like forward thing, it's the forward and then the slight lift. And you'll feel it too. When I was reading this, I was like, interesting. And I was like trying to get it in my head, like what exactly they're talking about. Cause I was like, well, like this, and that's fine. And then I was like looking at it even more, and I was like, oh, that's what it is. Like, you're already forward, and then it's that slight lift. And that's what catches people. And that's what really is creating a lot of dysfunction in that cervical. The TMJ is also another thing that it increases, is a TMJ, or temporal mandibular joint, is also affected by imbalances of the cranial system, pelvis, and rest of the body. The lower jaw can be compared to a porch swing, with the two sides being suspended by the ceiling or base of the skull. If the ceiling isn't level, then the porch swing won't be either. Given the hundreds of times we open and close the jaw each day while talking and eating, this repetitive uneven strain can cause clicking, pain, and dysfunction of the TMJ. Does everybody understand that reference to the porch swing? Okay. Lastly, the cranial and dural system is a prime example of how tightness in one part of the body can directly affect another area of the body. Imagine the dura like a string or elastic between two handles. If you pull on one end, that polar tension will travel along the string or elastic to the opposite end and create tension at the other handle, and vice versa. With this visual, it is easy to see imbalances of the how the imbalances of the pelvis might contribute to neck pain and headaches, or how restrictions of the cranium and suboccipital region, base of the head where it meets the spine, might contribute to pelvic symptoms. Has anybody ever heard of craniosacral? So that's the concept behind craniosacral, is that you are so connected between the cranial and the sacrum, and that actually a lot of our body parts mimic up here, down here. If you actually look anatomically at a skeleton, what we look like down here cut in half is exactly what we look like cut with our throat. The same with the shoulders and everything too, shoulders and hips. So if want to create our fancy contraption. So I was telling them before you got here that we're trying to create something as if you were gonna like put your elbows on the table and be able to hold your face like this. Kind of comfy. Now, these ones we're gonna hold for a little bit. Because again, we're dealing with the deepest layer. So cranial, when I do cranial on people, I hold those for a good amount of time, because it's definitely very, very effective. Okay. Catch her up when she comes back. So we've got our table. The first one is the ear pull release. So put your elbows, grab your ears, the outside of your ears, the part that kind of like connects to the back. You're gonna pull them out. You got the ears, pull them out, and then let the head come forward.
Are you kind of like towards the top of the ear then? So
Yeah, right here.
yeah.
Yeah, like if you were to get one of those little, like clips, you know, for the side of the ear, the clip jewelry, the cuff. Yeah, where you would put a cuff. And again, so you want to pull out, and then just let your head come forward. So if I weren't using my head, say I was just, if I wasn't using this, I'm pulling out and pulling the ears back. So by my head dipping down, it's letting the ears pull back. You feel that? Yeah. So that's the motion, is you want the ears to come out and then back. But by letting the head just drop, that takes out, you don't have to pull, trying to not make you have to use as much muscle. Lovely. So the motion is to grab onto the sides of the ears, pull them out, and then let the head come forward so that the ears are getting pulled back. You can also do it without letting the head fall, and you can just do it up here and pull back. But this way kind of gives you just a nice little release. We're gonna hold that for a couple minutes. It's always such a good one. I'll have people's neck crack a lot when I pull their ears. It's so funny. So this is helpful when addressing tinnitus, hearing issues, dizziness, and vertigo. So if you know somebody that has vertigo, this is really good for them. You just have to tell them 5 minutes. How's everybody feeling? Anybody feeling anything? Any different types of places? Squeezing your ears too tight. That's full, and that's how you learn how to soften. Yeah, because again, well, it's you become aware, that your grip is getting tighter, and which is kind of a survival mode thing. Yeah, we learned when I was getting trained for MFR, that's something you caught on to very fast about yourself when you're working on people, is that your whole body is like tense and you don't realize it until they come around and put their hands on your shoulders and tell you to soften. Give it about another 30 seconds. It's also a very relaxing one too.
Me going backwards.
Where did you start going backwards?
My blocks are tipped like this.
I have to do sometimes when I'm working on people, I'll like all of a sudden be like, where's my body? Okay. You what?
I was doing this. I should have done something
Like this?
or is it?
How'd you have them? Yeah.
Is that how
Yeah,
you're supposed to do
This
it?
would be too, you wouldn't,
Would that be?
that wouldn't work, right? Yeah.
One part? Yeah. Just.
And the next one is the sphenoid release. So the sphenoid is a cranial bone deep in the skull. It helps it creates part of the sinus cavity and the eye socket. I thought I proofread this. It is also adjacent to the pituitary gland, the master gland of the body. releasing this area can have an effect on all of those areas. So, the sphenoid is got this soft little spot right back behind the eyeball. Like right there. You guys feel that spot? A little soft spot right behind the eye. Okay. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna gently, I use 2 fingers, use the pointers and the middle. You're gonna gently push into that space. It's just a gentle, gentle pressure. And then when you feel that you've got that pressure down, then you're gonna do the same thing where you're gonna kind of slide the head forward and the fingers back. But they're not actually sliding, right? So this is where you get into the difference between the skin and the fascia, right? So the fascia, when you say like slide on the fascia, it means you're like actually more so just giving momentum to the like towards the direction you want to go. It's not necessarily actually moving.
It's like sending breath to your lower limbs.
Yes,
You're thinking about it.
exactly. Exactly. So you can create space and movement without even actually moving. It's pretty amazing.
How much pressure?
It depends. So for some people, I always start off with light pressure when I work on people, because I just don't know sensitivity wise if they're prone to headaches and migraines, and I don't want to make one start up, from being too intrusive. So I try to be light at first. But then, if it's feeling good, that's the thing. If you can feel if the fascia is melting, if it feels under your fingers, like it's kind of like melting and allowing space, you can push a little harder into it. I'm in trouble with your elbows.
No, they're all right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm all right. Yeah. I don't know if there's something you can use, maybe easier. Try another block. Fire.
If it's uncomfortable for my low back.
This
Feels like
is
it's,
a little uncomfortable.
yeah, it feels like it's straining my low back.
Did it happen right when you started it, or was it gradual?
Front line forward in the.
I wonder if you-
In the way, that might be.
I wonder if
Closer to you.
No,
if you put something
further
under,
away.
like if you just kind
I
of
thought
lift
it
up
kept
like a
flying
towel
around.
under you, that probably might help a little bit. But also this, again, like you can sit at the table, right? You can be in a chair. You can be in a chair at the table and do it, right? The blocks are definitely not ideal, but it's more so just trying to get you an idea. But I would definitely do it at the table because it'll just be easier. But again, I didn't have 6 tables for us to use. Okay, so the next one is going to be the maxillary release. So, I'm also going to tell you, it might help bringing one leg in.
Then I wanted to move the blocks closer in,
Yeah.
so I was trying to figure it out.
Is that a little better?
Yeah, that's with the leg.
Move the-
cross,
Yeah,
works better.
is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Leg in and out. Okay, so the maxillary release, the maxilla forms parts of the sinuses, and can be effective in addressing sinus pressure and facial pain. It's this part right here, right? You're gonna take your palms and push under the top of the cheeks. Put the elbows down and you're just letting it sink. So it's like giving yourself a facelift, right? Yeah, and then you let the elbows drop and you just let your face kind of melt down between your palms. And you can get the palms, a little closer. Again, take your time where you're just kind of feeling around. There's so much fascia in your face that even if you're not exactly on the spot I'm talking about, you're still going to feel it and it's going to be affected and you're going to get something done. Typically, the face is holding a lot of emotion and a lot of tension because we never touch it. And I don't know, we just like to hold a lot up there. Let's take a nice big inhale. Hold the inhale. And exhale. You might even feel like a knot in your cheek.
Going down my neck.
Mhm.
Drooling.
Give you guys another minute. And then we will move on to the next one. This stuff's so good. Okay, you guys slowly come out of that. Again, coming out of myofascial stretching, you want to ease your way out of it, as you might feel a little discomfort just from sitting in something for so long. Let your body just rebounding back. TMJ release. It's very helpful for jaw dysfunction and pain, face pain, and headaches. So I'm sure everybody has dealt with TMJ or knows somebody with TMJ because that's a biggie, And a lot of times they'll tell you you have to get surgery to fix it. That's a lie. You don't have to. It's the same thing with carpal tunnel. It's an easy thing to put a band-aid over with surgery, but most likely you're gonna have issues again later on because the point of tension is not being addressed to what caused it in the first place. So TMJ, bring your hands to the sides of your cheeks like this. And this one, you don't have to put your elbows down. This one's an air one. And all you're doing is you're squeezing. Try to create the pressure on the jaw though, instead of like squeezing your whole head together. Make sure that pressure is coming into the jaw and then pull down. And again, as I say, pull down, you're not like pulling down. It's like just a very gentle, it's like the momentum is going down As if you could pull something down, pulling it down. Now, if you want to get a little bit more intense with it, I like to actually stick my fingers right here. So you get your fingers right here, a little cheek pocket, right? You can push the fingers in and pull down, same sort of thing. I actually have a knot in my jaw, which is crazy. I never knew I had till I started doing this stuff. But this is my jaw that is pushed up. And so, yeah, I can feel there's like a little knot right here. I didn't know it was a knot until I started feeling on the other side, and I was like, oh, that's not over there. So yeah, it's really wild. You don't think of that your jaw could have knots in them, but they do. And those are just their little fascial restrictions. Yeah, you can all the way up. I mean, it's all the way, yeah, the whole jaw right here. You can anywhere on that, because sometimes I'll come up here and start and pull down through here. When I work on people too, I'll do that. I'll kind of start here and pull down and then get down here and kind of hang out right at the end. And a lot of people, it's funny, you'll see people do this naturally. When they have jaw pain, they'll stick their fingers in their jaw right here, not knowing, that they're giving themselves a fascial release, but they get relief when they do that. You can also put your thumbs into the back, this back part right here, and that can feel really good. And that's actually, you can kind of pull the jaw forward a little bit. It's like you're hooking on to the back of the jaw and pulling forward. Oh, yeah. That feels. Yeah, and like they were saying, it's the same thing with posture and walking, the amount of times we open and close our mouth. And then if you have something that's offline or it's offline a little bit, and the more and more and more and more times you do that, every single time it's like a tension, 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 tension. And then after a certain amount of time, the nerves will let you know. I'm gonna say this right, pterygoid release. The pterygoids, I'm supposed to look up how to pronounce it. Pterygoids are small muscles that influence the opening and closing of the TMJ joint. Restrictions here contribute to jaw pain and clicking of the jaw. So inside of the mouth, you've got, if you feel back here, it's like a little bridge. Right back here. You guys want to stick your finger in your mouth and come along with me. So stick your finger in your mouth. And it's on the side of the cheek. You're gonna feel it's like a little bridge and it goes up and down. You feel that? Now take your finger and just run it up and down. Do you feel like some little bony parts of it? Yeah, those are fascial restrictions. So you can push into those, like you can actually pull, you're kind of like pulling it away, right? Like pulling it, like you're like pulling your hand out like this, but you're actually grabbing onto that thing, which is like a handle sort of for your finger to push into. And the more you push into those spots, those little like bony parts, or the more you can just like stick your finger in there and push, it's going to create space in your jaw. So it's really going to release those side parts, because right here works and it's great, but the inside is far more effective. If you can work on the inside of the jaw and pull it out, you can create that space for it to come down. So that would be another thing I would tell people if they are already doing this kind of stuff and they have TMJ, go to the inside of the mouth, because it's a whole nother space that you can work into. We did an entire portion of our training on the inside of the mouth. So the mouth is really interesting how you can access different parts of the body through the inside of the mouth via the fascia system. And the hair pull release. So the hair pull release, it's not for everyone. Some people don't have hair. So I don't always like telling, like, especially in class, I make sure everybody has hair before we do it. But if they don't have hair, if you don't have hair, you can use a towel, actually. You place a towel behind the neck and pull. But the hair is a lot better because you can, so your hairline is a fascia restriction. So where that line is right there, you typically have a ton of fascia restrictions. So you can take time either side, or you can grab the whole back part right here and you pull up. And it's gonna get in that spot right in the cervical. Now, what I like to do in class is I tell them to grab onto one side and pull over the opposite side. Right, and there's different ways you can do it, really. There's no wrong way of pulling your hair. You can pull it over to the right, up, left. You can kind of pull and dip the head a little bit if you want, or you can just pull straight up. You can go a little deeper into the sides of the neck and grab on and pull behind the ear. The hair is a really good way to release the fascia all around the cranial. And then also in the front too, you can just take the front and you can pull back. That feels good. This is really good for the frontal lobe. It's a nice release. You can actually take your hand too and place it on the frontal lobe to create a little tension. So, somebody doesn't have hair, you can take a towel to the back of the neck and pull left, right, up. Not everybody has hair. Okay, one more I wanted to show you. This is a real nifty one for sinuses, headaches, migraines. So you've got your inside of your eyebrow or inner parts of your eyebrow. You're gonna take the thumb and the pointer finger, and you're going to pinch the first part of each eyebrow. So it's kind of like you're grabbing onto the brow bone, and you're just gonna pinch it right there, as deep as you would like. Some people are a little sensitive, some people really love it and want to go deeper. The more you get up in that brow bone, the more you're gonna feel. And you can even work the thumb and the fingers down the brow bone. I actually hold more tension on the outside of the brow bone, or on the more like closer to the ears. So when I pinch like the outside of the brow bone, I can feel it a little bit more, but I feel it in the middle too, but it's like two different spots. And then even in the middle part, I'll feel it in a very different spot too. Oh, you'll notice too, as you're feeling around, that bone is real sensitive. Almost like sore kind of to the touch. And I think it's just, I personally think we hold so much in our brow bone and it never gets released. So it's like a taut balloon.
I feel it more on my right side.
Yeah. And then also that'll be a good dictator then which side of your cranium is tighter, right? Fascia wise. So then if you're feeling it more on your right side, that would indicate that you need more pressure for like that and that one and the side, that what your pressure is probably making it like right here, you know, like that one. And those two, like you don't have to do both, or you don't even have to have the same pressure for both. Like if you feel the body wanting to lean into the one side, then lean into that one side. Get out of the logic brain and into the intuitive brain.
I think it's
Where you're
kinda like a
feeling.
sinus release,
It is.
you know?
Oh yeah, big sinus release. Yeah.
Yeah, language.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's a big, I think it's an acupuncture spot. Is right there. Yeah. So we are almost done, and I just wanted to go over the concept of unwinding real quick. So unwinding is this phenomenon that started occurring when John Barnes started doing his MFR techniques on people. And what would start to happen is the body, what he'd be working on somebody, and then all of a sudden the body would like come to life. And the person's not even necessarily like aware of it. Like a leg would like shoot up, or an arm would shoot up, or it would twitch, or the body, and then the person whoever he's working on like gets like shaken because they're like, I didn't do that. Like I didn't mean to do that. Right. So this started happening a lot for him. So he started realizing he needed a word for it. And so he calls it unwinding. So unwinding is a form of dynamic stretching that allows the wisdom of your body to show you in what three-dimensional positions your body needs to move in order to release. These are often positions of past trauma or injury. Unwinding is a natural, inherent motion of your body. Many have witnessed this when viewing a cat after it wakes up from a long nap. So animals unwind every time they get up from sleeping. The cat will stretch its spine and limbs, maybe twisting itself into different positions during the process. It will also often roam or make a noise as well. Humans do this too when they wake up in the morning, and it feels so good. So, you know, when you wake up and you just naturally start whatever you start doing, that is unwinding, because there's not really a game plan. You're just moving into the space that was stiff when you were sleeping. Exactly. We should be doing that throughout the entire day, is technically how we should be. Children are natural unwinders and will often be seen twisting, contorting, or assuming different positions with their bodies during play or when relaxing. We are often taught as children to disconnect from this aspect of body sense, as we are repeatedly instructed to sit still or behave properly or have control rein it in. Our need to move and be active starts to become constricted. And that's, again, the whole mind-body connection. You know, you can't say something to one thing with it not affecting the other thing. And if you think about it, that really is what happens with human beings. Is we go from being very active and agile and to just these very, very constricted spaces. And we are almost scared to move out of them, or we like almost forget that we can, in a way. Unwinding is not conscious, volitional movement. So it may seem awkward or scary at first to let go and allow our bodies to move on their own. Once it is if one is significantly disconnected from his or her body, a trained therapist may be needed initially. And I see this with people. Sometimes people, they're so locked in that it really takes some time and some work and some deep tissue massage to really get the body. Because if you have so many knots in you, it's going to be really, really hard to get into that space where you're just, you know, free flowing. So I would definitely recommend some deep tissue for everybody at some point, as it is just good for you. At times, but as one allows himself to tune in and go with the natural flow of movement, unwinding becomes easy and pleasurable. At times during the unwinding process, you might find that the body seems to just stop in a particular position. These are called still points. and are significant positions in space where there may be a stored memory. So even when we were working with the balls and everything, you know, and you like hit that spot that's like, like the, oh, like that's what it's talking about. That's a tension spot. That is a spot that got hit by some sort of injury or something, and it hasn't been able to release yet. And that is like when you're unwinding, it's allowing you to get into your body in that way where you're able to find those tension spots. When I work on people, a lot of times I'll find knots that they have no idea that they have. Unwinding can really help you do that on your own. You know, if you do yoga, it can be a little challenging because yoga can be very dogmatic at times with structure and everything. That's where a good way to get out of it is put on some music and just sort of allow yourself, like you can start with some yoga poses, like do some sun salutations or something, but then like kind of sit in the pose for a second and start wiggling around a little bit and finding different spaces versus just that linear spot. Unwinding is a great way to start a self-treatment session if you are unsure of what areas of your body needs most attention that day. Again, like regular yoga and exercise, sometimes we get so stuck in those patterns of movement. We do the same class, the same video every single day. We are staying in these linear planes, and we are not becoming aware of these other aspects of the body that things are going on in. No. Which takes me to the last part. One of the most important things to take away from this workshop is, when working with the body's fascia, is to begin to feel the difference between being reactive and being responsive. So, meaning a lot of the stuff that's going on in our body is why we're so reactive, because we're already so tight and we're already so keyed up in the body that it's a lot easier to just go straight to reaction, to be in reactive mode, which again is in survival mode. That's in logic brain, instead of being intuitive brain, instead of being soft and relaxed. And that's where you take that control back, right? Like you take that control and you can be responsive in the fashion that you want. And that's where we're trying to get with our body too. And they go together. To know that you always have a choice, and it's the tiny choices that ultimately create the momentum and motivation for the bigger choices. So all the little stretches, all the little things, all those little spots where the ball was going, that ultimately what takes you to those big steps. Yeah, and to me, when you do those little steps, the bigger things just sort of unfold a lot easier. To be able to take that pause, take that breath, and realize that you do not have to react the same way you have before, even if it is working for you. Maybe something else could work better. Never create linear plateaus for yourself. There is nothing in this world that is naturally linear. So stop planning your life like that and stop stretching like that. They did this experiment where they had this backyard playground, and for the first round, they did not put a fence up. And majority of the kids stayed like real close to the playground. Like they didn't try to venture at all outside, even though there wasn't a fence up. So then they did it again and they put a fence up, and the kids went all the way to the fence to play. So when I was reading about this, they were talking about having boundaries for kids and why it's healthy to have boundaries for kids, because you're actually setting them up to explore the full space. Because there's something about our human nature that keeps us right here if we don't understand our full boundaries. So to me, when working with fascia, I think that that's a great example, because if you're not understanding the boundaries that are going on in your body and the restrictions, you're never going to explore them. You're just going to act like they're not even there. And I think that we think a lot, even as we were kids, later on in life, when we're dealing with stuff with ourselves and our body, we tend to go back to those childlike ways. So yeah, I encourage, I don't think boundaries aren't a bad thing. I think it's healthy to understand you continue to move on, but taking that first step and understanding where you need to be, you do need to explore and go into the uncomfortable and the unknown and feel it. And then you can go back if you want, or you can, but feeling it is, I think, what we're missing a lot of the times. So, but yeah, and we're at 2:30. You guys are so wonderful. Thank you for coming back and doing all this wonderful fun stuff with me. I am going to do another set of workshops in the fall. I think we're going to try to do a partner one and get some massage tables in here and start treating each other and learning different things. So yeah, stay tuned. I also really kind of want to start a myofascia stretching class where you come into class and we do these stretches and we're holding them for 5 minutes, because I know myself, it's hard to do it on your own. It's hard to find that time. That's where classes are always nice, because you can be like,
People wanna keep moving, like, they feel like they're gaining more by moving, and that's why I think we find it hard to just sit in a spot, for an extended amount of time, but.
There is this, that's like a movement in the stillness in the movement. You can find a lot of movement in the stillness. You can find a lot of stillness in movement. Yeah, they're not separate at all. Not at all. There's a lot going on in there. But yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free. I can also do private sessions, if you ever wanted to hang out with me for an hour and really get in there and try to figure out a self practice for yourself. I always love to do that too. So, and I'm just going to be doing more and more of these things. So stay tuned.
Are you gonna send us the video of it?
I know. I'm so happy it recorded so well. Oh, right? When technology works. Mwah. Thank you guys. Thanks, Steph. Oh, bye, Evelyn. Yes. God. I love you. Thanks, Steph.
See you later.
Okay.